£81,100,000. I want you to picture an asset worth that exact amount, just vanishing, gone in a split second. How on earth does something that incredibly expensive simply disappear?
How does it happen? Well, an 81.1 million pound cutting-edge RAF F-35B stealth fighter ended up at the absolute bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. And it wasn't enemy fire, it wasn't a massive catastrophic engine failure, it was a piece of cheap plastic. A forgotten intake cover brought down one of the most advanced pieces of machinery in human history. Think about the sheer terror of that kind of human error.
Welcome to this special report from the Human Error News Network. In this explainer, we are stepping into the shoes of investigators. We're unpacking high-stakes military case studies to figure out exactly how we can detect, prevent, and correct catastrophic failures before they happen to us.
So let me ask you something. Think about your own team. When a colleague makes a massive, career-altering mistake, what is your immediate gut reaction? If we're being completely honest, our first instinct is usually to point a finger, right? We want to blame the individual who dropped the ball. But should we? Are they actually the root cause of the disaster, or are they just the very last domino to fall?
Safety investigator Bill Wilson puts this perfectly. He says, "Any root cause analysis that claims human error as a root cause is clearly full of it." It's kind of refreshing to hear it said so bluntly, isn't it? Wilson completely shatters this blame game we all play. He's saying that if we stop our investigation at human error, we are willfully ignoring the actual problem. We're letting the real culprit off the hook.
Let's look at what the research actually shows us. Professor James Reason gives us a framework that divides failures into two camps: individual accidents versus organizational accidents. When we look at modern catastrophes, like losing a stealth fighter, the data shows these are almost never just individual accidents caused by one guy having a bad Monday. No, they are organizational accidents, born from complex, deep, systemic failures. Investigators used Professor Reason's famous Swiss cheese model to visualize this. Imagine your organization's safety barriers are slices of Swiss cheese. The holes, those represent latent organizational failures, or what investigators call pathogens: poor training, rough schedules, bad communication. These hidden pathogens constantly shift and change size. Disaster only strikes when all those holes perfectly line up, letting a catastrophe slip right through the cracks.
Let's apply this to the real world. Let's look at the actual timeline of that RAF F-35 crash. The pilot didn't just decide to ditch the jet. Look at how these pathogens aligned. First, a severe personnel shortage meant they lacked experienced engineers. Second, the plastic intake covers, known as red gear, were terribly designed. Wind kept blowing them away. Third, because they blew away constantly, the crew created an unofficial workaround to just not install them properly. Before the pilot even throttled up, the accident was already built by the organization. And here is the most chilling line from the investigators' report. They found that the dangerous workaround of ignoring those poorly designed blanks had become a normalized feature of operations. Think about that. A dangerous shortcut just became totally acceptable culture on the carrier. The hole in the cheese was wide open, and nobody even batted an eye.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's just one freak incident. Let's raise the stakes. Here's a $196.5 million United States Air Force F-35. Total loss. But this time, no plastic cover. It was water, specifically frozen water that completely tricked the nearly $200 million jet's landing gear sensors into thinking the plane was safely rolling down the runway, when in reality, it was flying thousands of feet in the air. This detail from the failure report is just wild. The pilot was literally trapped airborne, on the phone for nearly an hour with engineers on the ground, desperately trying to figure out what to do. The autopilot software, tricked by those frozen struts, locked into on-ground flight control laws. The jet became totally uncontrollable, and the pilot had to eject before a fiery crash. Again, not pilot error. This was a massive systemic flaw in maintenance procedures and software design. So how do we actually hunt down these systemic flaws in our own work? The Naval Aviation Safety Program uses something called HFACS, the Human Factors Analysis and Classification System. It's an investigative template that forces you to dig way past the immediate human error. It helps teams collaboratively classify the deeper, systemic breakdowns that set that human up to fail in the first place. Let's actually practice using this with a real naval aeromedical investigation into a helicopter mishap. Right on the surface, the report reads,
The MH2P failed to apply sufficient left pedal during takeoff. If we stop right there, boom, individual accident. The pilot messed up the pedals. Case closed, right? Wrong.
We have to dig a layer deeper into the HFACS codes. Investigators classified this specific mechanical failure as a performance-based error. The pilot failed to lower the collective when directed. Now the question changes. Why did performance break down? Was it a lack of training? Was there a distraction? We're shifting focus from the individual's foot on a pedal to the actual environment they were forced to operate in. And the final layer reveals the ultimate systemic truth. That physical mistake in the cockpit, it was actually driven by deeper judgment and decision-making errors rooted in supervisory failures. The detachment lacked proper flight safety awareness, and supervisors failed to highlight hazardous patterns. The pathogen wasn't a bad pilot, it was poor leadership communication.
This brings us directly back to you and your team. We've just seen how these hidden pathogens destroy multi-million-dollar jets and cause catastrophic crashes. So the absolutely vital question is, how do you monitor the health of your team's thinking? How do we catch these cascading errors in our own projects and systems before the holes in the Swiss cheese line up?
The answer is metacognition. Engineering expert Dr. Rob Nieweiner highlights this concept perfectly with a quote from David Moore. Metacognition is literally thinking about thinking. It means you aren't just reasoning your way to a solution. You are simultaneously actively reflecting on the quality of your reasoning process while you do it. This is your ultimate defense mechanism against organizational accidents. Picture the computers on a modern fighter jet. They have redundant processors running in parallel. They don't just blindly execute flight controls. They constantly ask each other, do you agree? Are we all healthy? If one processor's logic is flawed, the others immediately vote it out. Human teams have to do the exact same thing. You need to constantly cross-check your team's logic and ask, is our thinking healthy today? Here's a concrete roadmap to build that redundant thinking into your operations. We call these the elements of thought. Teach your team to constantly analyze the true purpose of every activity. Aggressively challenge assumptions. Just because you've always done it a certain way definitely doesn't mean it's safe. Verify your information and always consider the long-term implications. We have to stop accepting simplistic, dangerous answers to complex problems.
But here's the catch. Preventing disaster isn't just about handing out a new checklist of rules. It requires building specific intellectual traits. Your team has to have the intellectual humility to admit when a system is completely broken. They need the intellectual courage to speak up to a supervisor when a dangerous workaround becomes normalized. You have to build a culture of relentless curiosity.
So here is the crucial shift in how you lead. Stop blaming the individual. When a failure happens, do not stop your investigation at the final human who touched the project. Step up and become an investigator. Hunt down the organizational pathogens, the poor procedures, the confusing software, the bad communication loops. If you fix the environment, you fix the outcome.
Your system, right now, is perfectly designed to get the exact results it is getting today. The F-35 teams built systems that perfectly allowed plastic covers and frozen water to destroy their jets. So I'll leave you with this. What dormant errors, what hidden pathogens are hiding in your system right now just waiting for the cheese to align?